Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Introvert Talks with me, Jo Rawbone. This is the podcast that celebrates the natural gifts of introverts so that we can flourish in all situations. Episode 182. What happens when we continue to play small? You'll know by now that I'm currently focusing on bravery, and August is the month of my 3 Becoming Braver sessions. I've absolutely loved this deep dive into bravery as I create the content for the sessions, and it led me to a natural conclusion. The price of continuing to play small, of leaving our bravery locked inside, and of letting our potential remain untapped is honestly too great a price to pay. And that's for me, as someone who gets just a glimpse of your inner world, but rarely more than that. And if I find it too high a price to pay, I want to alert you to what it may be costing you in terms of fulfilment. So in this episode, I'll be exploring what all of these things mean to we introverts who have ambitions and big plans. Not you? Maybe this isn't the episode for you then, but before you tune out, I encourage you to spend a few moments reflecting on what ambitions and big plans mean to you. For me, I accept that my ambitions are global, but for many others, their ambitions are to have a life well lived and on their terms. Or maybe it means to avoid drama and overwhelm, or even to simply be happy. And all of these are noble ambitions which I share too. And I believe we can't necessarily achieve these by playing small and without being just a little bit brave. As I can't talk about this without referencing playing small, I thought I'd share a little of what Mariam Williamson meant when she talked about it in her now famous verse. I'm sharing it first in full as it has inspired me for several decades now, from the first time I read it in A Return to Love. And I guess it might have inspired you similarly too. Her passage reads, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us." We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. As I said, that passage really has inspired me for a few decades now. And there's that phrase, your playing small does not serve the world. And just for clarity, I don't think the antonym of playing small is playing big. I believe it's playing to your full potential. I believe it's opting in, not opting out. I believe it's taking considered risks and putting myself out there. When I was still in an engineering role in BT, I remember a senior manager, Keith, who I very much respected, talking about putting his head above the parapet, knowing he would become a target. Not playing small to me means letting people know what I stand for, being prepared to be the target. To me, it still means making my life mean something. I've said before that I hope the only regrets I have on my deathbed are the things I did and said, not the things I didn't do or didn't say. And there will be some of you listening who are not yet ready for that kind of life. And I'm not here to judge, but I am here to invite. All too often, as overthinking introverts, we catastrophize, imagine the worst, and frankly, we overinflate our ego. Few of us are influencing millions, although I aim to one day. I'm quite open about that. Indeed, much of what we say may go unheard, but that doesn't mean it's not worth saying. I could say I might as well give up on this podcast because I don't have millions of listeners. But that does a disservice to those like you who are listening right now. It does a disservice to those who do find solace and inspiration in my words. And that's not why I do this podcast. I said right from the outset that my podcast is really cathartic for me, and listeners are a bonus. I feel like I'm creating a body of work that may evolve into something else, and for now it suits me very well. And please do leave a review or drop me an email if my podcast episodes serve you in some way. That was an example of me choosing to be braver. I could have just let it slip by. So why ask you to review my podcast? I spent far too long leaving my bravery locked inside me. I was meek and apologetic, especially with the more extroverted male colleagues I worked with. I could do brave playfully, almost in a passive-aggressive way, but full-on bravery eluded me. I was scared of it, to be honest. I was scared of who I might be if I were braver. But you know what? I like her, that braver me. She's feisty and sassy and confident. Well, most of the time, I'm always a work in progress. Today, I had a virtual meeting with 4 very big clients of mine, and I showed up in all my glory and shared what they needed to hear. It wasn't necessarily what they wanted to hear, but that's not what they pay me for. I consider I have a duty of care to tell them what they need to know. I was confident on camera. I used most of the techniques I share in my presenting to camera course, because even we introverts can show up well on camera. It's a choice after all. In the conversation that followed, I gave them some good ideas which were well received, and they all listened to what I had to say. Today I could be brave because I'd done my preparation, which enabled me to show up as the professional I consider myself to be. It doesn't happen by chance. It happens by design. And then I could spark ideas with them as we'd developed a level of trust and mutual respect. I can do spontaneous as well as the next person when that level of trust and respect exists. And it hasn't always been that way. I've spent too long being frustrated about my own untapped potential, so I recognise it in others. I recognise the smoke screens they throw up to try and disguise their playing small. How? Because I used to do the same. It does sadden me because I don't want those people to regret the opportunities that they held back from or the challenges that they thought were not for them. And ultimately, I don't want them thinking, if only. So here's what really happens when we continue to play small. Our world and our comfort zone come to that, becomes smaller. Now I know that there are introverts out there with social anxiety, with depression, and who are misanthropes, who will try to argue what's wrong with that. The truthful answer is everything. Like it or not, as humans, we are pre-wired for connection, and for we introverts, that means the right connections, not cutting ourselves off. If you found over lockdown that your circle of trusted confidants became so small that you didn't even need a hand to count them on, then it's time to emerge again. Slowly, gently, and safely is my advice, but emerge you must. Comfort zones serve a purpose, but spending our whole life there is not living a fulfilled life. Remember those 3 enduring factors? I most recently talked about them in episode 168, but I've talked about them before that too, and will continue to talk about them. The 3 enduring factors are, firstly, an unfolded self and life. This is the extent to which we can be our unique selves and lead a true life. Just imagine yourself unfolding like a butterfly or a dragonfly to really sense how that feels. Yes, you'll feel vulnerable to begin with as your wings dry, but then flight is yours. The second enduring factor is a worthwhile life. This is the perception that we can invest our capacities meaningfully. And it starts with really knowing what our strengths and capacities are, owning them, and then finding ways to use them fruitfully. And the third enduring factor is a positive impact and legacy, which is doing something that matters to others and leaving something of value. I'm working at what some might think is impossible, shifting the extroversion bias. But what really matters to me about this is the legacy that I leave in others, not just for them. You see, I plan to leave at least 1 million introverts, knowing that they are enough, that they are not broken or in need of fixing. I plan to leave organisations recognising that the extroversion bias they've been perpetuating has left far too many people feeling unsafe psychologically, and it's cost those organisations dearly. I plan for my work to have global reach and for others to pick up and continue my work, and I believe they will if it matters enough to them. But not all positive impact and legacy needs to be on this scale. I stand with and applaud a parent, a caregiver, or a sibling who helps an introverted child feel safer to be who they are. I stand with introverted women who emerge from the oppression of a narcissistic partner. I stand with employees who hold firm on boundaries in the workplace. You see, these are great ambitions too. But if we continue to play small, if we continue to hide inside our introversion and use it as an excuse for a lack of action, if we continue to dim our own light so that others might feel more important or more powerful, we are simply reinforcing a prison of our own making and sentencing others to reside in that prison. And if we do that, we have no real right to complain, because we're teaching others how to see us as small, as lacking power and presence. We subliminally tell them that we are not leadership or management material. We therefore invite them to overlook us or pass us over for promotion. We send our loved ones unspoken messages that we are content with our lot and that we have no dreams, no aspirations, and no hopes worth pursuing. Worst of all, we subconsciously teach our children that keeping their heads down and pleasing others is the right way to live their life. There's some reframing to do here, because bravery is not about anger or aggression. Bravery is about the courage to learn who we really are, to dream our futures in glorious technicolor, and then to show up as fully expressed humans. As Mariam Williamson also said in A Return to Love, it takes courage to endure the sharp pains of self-discovery rather than to choose to take the dull pain of unconsciousness that would last the rest of our lives. I happen to believe that sharp pains are easier to endure and heal than the lifelong dull pain of opting out. Choose bravery today, and if you're still in time, the link in the show notes will take you to the August sessions information page. And if that time has passed, the link will take you to a future waitlist. Whenever you listen to this, choose bravery. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, then please subscribe, rate us and leave a comment, because we know that helps other people find the podcast. And if other people find us, other introverts can flourish.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.